The neighbor living across from me suddenly sent a message in the homeowners group. I have an announcement to make. My wife is pregnant. To ensure she can rest easy during her pregnancy, I formulated a set of behavioral guidelines for the residents of this building. He then followed up with 10 prohibition. No renovation. No dog. No cooking at home. No using the elevator at night. No playing with your phone in front of my wife. 1. My wife could fall asleep at any time, so residents of this building are prohibited from making any noise, day or night, during my wife's pregnancy. Residents of this building are prohibited from conducting any form of renovation. My wife is afraid of dogs, so no dogs are allowed. Anyone who has a dog must get rid of it within 3 days, considering radiation issue. If you encounter my wife in the elevator, no one is allowed to look at their phone. My wife can't stand the smell of cooking oil, so residents on the 16th floor are prohibited from cooking at home. Then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, "You never used to watch these kind of emotional videos." The elevator door is loud, so residents on the 16th floor are prohibited from using the elevator after 9 p.m. I couldn't help but twitch at the corner of my mouth. His wife carrying a dragon baby. Making all these ridiculous demands of others, especially since there are only 2 households per floor. The last 2 rules were clearly aimed at me. This guy continued to issue orders from today on. All residents of this building must consciously adhere to this guideline. Now the group owner should help me tag everyone. Strangely, no one in the group cursed him out. They managed to hold their tongue, but I couldn't hold back. I immediately replied, "What does your wife's pregnancy have to do with it? Is this child a result of crowdfunding from all the men in the building?" My neighbor got angry. "How dare you talk like that? Do you want it up? I'm telling you. My wife's pregnancy is a major issue. Anyone dares to disturb her, I won't let it slide." "Who the hell are you? Why don't you have a note? This person even from our building? If not, kick him out." Wow, so domineering. It's a pity I've seen too many loudmouths like him. I don't care who you are. Your wife's baby has nothing to do with anyone else, and you have no right to interfere with others' behavior. The neighbor responded with an audio message, cursing my ancestors through the 18th generation. Then he tried to add me as a friend, but I ignored his message. Please don't provoke the family in 1601. Everyone in the building knows that whoever offends them will have no peace. The previous residents of 1602 moved out because they couldn't stand them. No wonder the others in the group didn't dare to speak up. They were afraid of getting into trouble. If that's how it is, I'm definitely interested. I may not be good at other things, but I have a lot of experience dealing with bullies. 1601 continued to rant in the group, going back and forth with the same profanities. I was already immune to this kind of talk. Besides, there's always tomorrow. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him. I turned off my phone and went. The next day, I went out with some friends for a big drink. When I returned and stepped out of the elevator, I was greeted by a giant pickled vegetable jar right at the door. It was the hottest time of August and September, with the air muggy and damp, and the sour, full smell was overwhelming, reminiscent of rotting fish and shrimp or even worse, spritzed water. It was nauseating. I didn't need to guess. It was definitely the work of my neighbor across the hall. I went straight to knock on his door. A bald man with a face full of flesh came out, looking quite impatient. "What do you want?" I pointed to the pickled vegetable jar. "This is yours. It's inappropriate to leave it outside." The man looked me up and down, then raised his chin. "How is it inappropriate? Who can stand it? If you can't stand it, just put up with it. My wife is pregnant and loves our food. I can't have her smelling it in our home. Can I?" So he actually knew how bad it smelled. "If you want to leave it outside, you should put it in front of your own door. It's blocking mine. Are you blind? Can't you see I've already filled my side? Your side is empty too. This is a public area. First come. You want to blame someone? Blame yourself for not getting here first. If it were someone else, they would probably be driven to a heart attack in no time." The bald man, so shameless and brazen, started to turn the tables on me. "How dare you come to my door? It's already 10 p.m. Didn't I say yesterday that using the elevator after 9 p.m. is not allowed? It will disturb my wife's rest. If you can't remember, should I print out those words and stick them on your door? Then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, "You never used to watch these kinds of emotional videos." He was so much like my middle school principal reprimanded student. There was clearly no reasoning with someone like him. I didn't waste any more breath and turned to go home. When I reached the pickled vegetable jar, my foot slipped, and I itched a few times before suddenly vomiting all over the stinky pickled vegetable. Thick, murky vomit splattered all over that smelly jar. Luckily, I didn't get a single drop on the floor or my clothes. The bald man was about to close the door when he froze, his eyes nearly popping out of his head. "What the hell? Are you crazy?" Thankfully, my door was equipped with a fingerprint lock. I quickly opened it, ducked inside, and slammed the door shut just as he came over in his slippers. Outside, there were screams and curses that sounded like a pig being slaughtered. Then his wife came out, panicking and asking what was happening. The cursing escalated from one person to two. I was in a great mood. I just pretended not to hear them. That jar of rotten pickles was finally useless. Riding the buzz from the drink, I slept like a log, not knowing how long the shouting continued outside before it stopped. The next day, when I stepped outside, then pitch mole videos, a stench worse than the pickled vegetables hit me right in the face, almost knocking me over. I quickly pinpointed the source of the foul smell. Oh boy, someone had smeared feces on my door. No wonder everyone in the building was afraid to mess with the neighbor. This couple was truly fearless. I found someone to clean my door but didn't confront my neighbor. Debating is only useful with reasonable people. When dealing with scoundrels, you have to be even more ruthless than they are. I bought a bottle of high-concentration fecal odor spray and toxic, but incredibly smelly. When the couple left together, I snuck over and gave their door frame and doormat a thorough spraying, even spraying all the shoes carelessly left on the ground. When the couple returned that evening, their keys stopped halfway through the door. They both leaned against the door like dogs sniffing it. After smelling the door frame, they smelled the floor, and after that, they sniffed the shoe. The woman couldn't hold back and gagged a few times, almost throwing up. I was behind the peephole, clutching my stomach and laughing heartily. The next second, my door was hammered with loud bang. I cracked the door open a bit, and the bald man's finger was practically poking my eye as he shouted, "Did you do this?" I acted innocent. "What are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me. The smell of feces at my door, what else could it be but you? Did you see me doing it at your door? Someone smeared feces on my door too. I suspect it was you." "Was it you?" Then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, "You never used to watch these kinds of emotional videos." The bald man suddenly yanked my door open. Reaching for my collar, I quickly grabbed his wrist. In terms of strength, I was no weaker than him. That moment, the bald man's wife came out to back him up. She stood behind her husband, hands on her hips, and started shouting insults like a shrew. "Stop pretending to be stupid. You think we don't know what you're up to? You rotten-hearted dog. Be careful doing such things or you'll have a son without an anus. You ungrateful scum. May you die a horrible death." Then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, "You never used to watch these kinds of emotional videos." Once they crossed the line, it was fun. I didn't even do anything after you smeared feces on my door. No matter how much they yelled, I kept repeating the same thing: "I don't know. You're not sure." It was me. I was committed to not admitting anything. The bald man had no evidence. He tried to pull his wrist away from my grip, and with a look of frustration, he almost ground his teeth and said, "Fine. You better watch yourself from now on. I'm telling you today, this isn't over between us." The smell of the fecal odor spray lingered for days, making it seem like a sewage tank had exploded at their door. Everyone upstairs and downstairs was discussing whether 1601 was just dumping feces without flushing it and leaving it at the door. The couple was furious and cursed in the group chat, forbidding anyone from discussing it. When the neighbor downstairs heard about my issue with the bald couple, she warned me. Xiaozu. Those two are not easy to deal with. They have no bottom line when it comes to doing things. If you provoke them and suffer losses, it won't help to call the property management or the police. We'll see who breaks first and has to call the police. The next evening, while I was cooking at home, the power suddenly went out. It shouldn't have. I just paid the electricity bill yesterday. Almost immediately, I thought of something. I went out to the electrical box in the hallway and saw that sure enough, the circuit breaker on my side had been turned off. The door across the hall was tightly shut, looking calm and quiet. I have to admit, their tactics of smearing feces and cutting off electricity were indeed disgusting, leaving you defenseless and with no evidence. Even if you caught them, reporting it to the police would only result in a lecture. They couldn't really do anything to them. Any normal person facing such scoundrels would feel tormented. But now they had met me, and the ones suffering and being tormented would be them. I smiled calmly, turned the circuit breaker back on, and returned to my room. Before long, the power went out again. Just like before, I quietly went out and pushed the circuit breaker back up. When the power went out for the third time, I opened the door leisurely. The bald man was standing at the electrical box, tightly gripping the circuit breaker switch. When he saw me come out, he looked a bit flustered. What? Is this circuit breaker fun? The bald man was holding his breath, but his hand didn't move an inch. I smiled. This is super strong quick drying glue. It feels nice, doesn't it? Only then did the bald man realize he had fallen for my trick. You son of a bitch. You're scheming against me. You maliciously turned off my circuit breaker, and I can report it. After all these time, who knows if my appliances are damaged? They are. You'll have to compensate me for new ones. Hearing that I wanted compensation, the bald man almost jumped in anger, then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, "You never used to watch these kind of emotional videos." What, maliciously turning off the circuit breaker? I just wanted to turn off my own breaker and made a mistake. Syria? Are your eyes that bad? You've turned it off 3 times by mistake. I was home all afternoon and just came out. Who are you slandering 3 times? Do you have any evidence? See it? As soon as he opened his mouth, he sounded like a stubborn old dog. I looked at him and nodded. I really don't have any evidence. But you better be careful next time you play with the circuit breaker. I've plenty of glue at home. This time it was the circuit breaker. Next time it could be some ons doorknob. After saying that, I went back into my room. You son of a bitch. You motherfucker. The bald man was furious. His face red and neck thick. But now, besides cursing me, he had no way to retaliate. His wife came out and called him a stupid pig. Then said she had read online that hot water could dissolve it, and she was holding a cup of water, ready to pour it over. What a pig. Do you think you can electrocute me? The bald man was so scared that he even cursed his wife. Are you yelling at me? I'm trying to help you, and you dare to yell at me? Who are you calling a pig? Are you rebelling against me now? Now there was internal conflict. The couple squabbled for over an hour, and the bald man was about to burst from holding his pee before his hand was finally freed. The first thing he did was rush to my door to shout and kick it. I was lying in bed scrolling through Douyin, ignoring him. Let him shout. I was the one getting tired. Videos eventually. The bald man yelled for almost half an hour before finally stopping, in the middle of the night. While I was sleeping soundly, the doorbell suddenly rang. It was a food delivery person downstairs asking me to open the building door. Did you press the wrong button? The delivery guy sounded very sure. Building 7. Yaoduding R. That's right. Cut. Open up quickly. I'm about to be late with this order. I was puzzled. Who orders food at 3 in the morning and disturbs me? My sleepiness vanished. When the delivery arrived, the bald man suddenly rushed out from across the hall and snatched the food from my hand in a flash. This is mine. Both the delivery guy and I were stunned. The bald man showed his phone order sewer in a. The delivery guy apologized to me. Sorry about that, man. But the bald man showed no signs of remorse, giving me an unfriendly look as he took the food back to his apartment. I was annoyed and asked him if he ordered food to fill my nostrils in the middle of the night. The bald man snorted. I accidentally ordered it wrong. What's the deal? Can't you understand such a minor issue related to your address? You can't possibly not get it, right? I couldn't help but reply. What if one day I accidentally fill in the wrong address in the middle of the night too? You'd have to understand. The bald man turned around and glared at me. Do you dare? My wife is a pregnant woman. If you wake us up in the middle of the night and make her uncomfortable, the baby will be uncomfortable. Can you bear the consequences? The dragon baby warning again. I didn't say anything else and politely gestured for him to leave. A few days later, at 3 in the morning again, the doorbell rang. Delivery. I quickly put on my jacket and spoke into the intercom. No need to bring it up. You'll come down to get it. After picking up the food, I took the elevator to the 15th floor and then quietly walked down the stairs back home. It was so quiet that even the motion sensor lights in the hallway didn't turn on. Once home, I opened the delivery. Well, there were sauce ribs, spicy chicken gizzard, spicy crawfish, and cold beer. The bald man was eating so well in the middle of the night. My door started banging again. Bang, bang, bang. I was really worried that one day he would break down my door. Open the door. You idiot. Give me back my takeout. I smacked my lips through the door. I was just hungry. This meal is really nice. Thanks for the treat. The volume outside suddenly increased. Fuck your mother. The bald man was furious. Since I had eaten their takeout and I refused to show my face, he couldn't take it anymore and called the police. When the police arrived, I had no choice but to open the door. As soon as I opened it, I was met with the bald man's venomous gaze, as if he wanted to stab me. His wife was beside him. Couple excitedly accused me of deliberately stealing their takeout and demanded compensation. The police weren't fools to be led by their noses. They seriously checked the bald man's phone order and asked why the address was written at my home. The bald man replied defiantly, "Well, I have one and he has two. It's normal to write it wrong." But he knows it's not his takeout and shamelessly took it to eat. I shook my head. No, that's not true. The police asked me, "Did you eat the takeout?" The bald man shouted, "Impossible. Didn't eat it. How would you know what was inside?" His wife chimed in. "He did it on purpose. He ate our takeout, and he must compensate us." I felt helpless. Think about it. Damn a receipt inside that says what's in there. I'm not like some people who are as dumb as pigs. Who the fuck are you calling dumb? All right. Both of you stop arguing. The police stood between me and the bald man and said to me, "Since you say you didn't eat it, just return the takeout quickly, and this will be settled." I handed the well-packaged takeout to the bald man. When he saw the takeout was indeed untouched, he was a bit surprised. "Then why didn't you open the door earlier? You look so fierce, coming at me like you were going to eat me. Who would dare?" The police were exasperated to handle such trivial matters in the middle of the night. Before leaving, they criticized the bald man, telling him not to mess up the address when ordering takeout at night. After all, this blunder was ultimately his fault. The bald man nodded meekly in front of the police, repeatedly agreeing. As soon as the police left, he immediately changed his tone, probably about to spew more filth. While I picked my nose, I said, "I really didn't eat the takeout. I just opened each one and added something inside. But don't worry. It's just a bit disgusting. Definitely won't kill you." After saying that, I flicked my thumbnail against my pinky nail. "What do you mean? Explain yourself." I slammed the door with a bang. Let him guess. The idiot. The couple didn't leave right away. "Wife, this takeout, what are you asking for? Don't you find it disgusting? If you want to eat it." What bad luck. It's all your stupid idea. Then, the couple didn't eat the takeout. The woman directly threw it at my door. The next day when I went out, I gave it a good kick back to them. After this battle, finally calmed down. No one suddenly rang my doorbell in the middle of the night to disturb my sweet dream. The wicked couple had hit a snag with me, and I didn't know what other lowly tactics they would use against me. I have to admit, I was a bit curious. And indeed, they didn't let me down. The bald man stole my package. I was so sure because I had replaced my electronic peephole. And the surveillance caught the bald man's wife sneaking around outside my door, then taking away a box of pomelos that I hadn't had time to bring home. 5 kilograms. Worth less than $30. Small. Very small-minded. Then, a large box appeared at my door. Labeled 10-pound premium cherries. The woman from across the hall came out to throw away the trash, took a look, and was pleasantly surprised. She quickly went back inside to call the bald man to help. The bald man also came out grinning and didn't hesitate to carry it back home. I watched them enjoy their moment through my phone's surveillance camera, wondering how they would react when they opened the box and found it filled with plump, white, wriggling maggots instead of cherry. Initially, I planned to arrange for a box of cockroaches. But considering those might escape to someone else's home and affect innocent people, I had to abandon that idea. This time, both the bald man and his wife went crazy. When I washed home and they couldn't find me, they resorted to cursing in their group chat. The couple, hurling insults back and forth, used particularly foul language but didn't mention the incident of stealing my package at all. The others in the group could hardly stand it and urged him to be careful, prompting the bald man to start launching indiscriminate attack. He threatened anyone who spoke up for me that he would go to their door and cause a scene, saying he was just waiting for me today, and that if I dared to show up, he would give me a taste of my own medicine. When I returned home around 8 o'clock in the evening, the bald man was indeed sitting at my door on a chair. Upon seeing me, he jumped up, wielding a baseball bat. Just a second ago, he was snarling like a vicious dog. But the next moment, he tucked his tail between his legs, and the bat awkwardly halted in the air. The police behind me asked, "Is that?" I nodded. "You are currently suspected of stealing someone else's property, with a value exceeding 1,000 yuan. Please come with us to the station for questioning." The bald man, who had been full of anger and was planning to settle the score with me, panicked when he realized he was now the suspect. "Officer, when did I steal something from someone? I didn't do it." I took out my phone and showed him the surveillance footage. "Video clearly shows you. Do you still dare to deny it?" The bald man was taken aback when he saw the footage on my phone. But then he immediately began to curse. "Fuck your mother. There are no cherries in that box." "Officer, it's maggot? Maggots? Am I out of my mind to buy a box of maggots? That's obviously the cherries I bought online. And I still have the purchase record." Although the bald man had stolen from me first, he was genuinely splattered with my dirty trick. He lunged at me with red eyes, but the police quickly subdued him. Without saying a word, they handcuffed him. "Come, let's go back for questioning." The bald man was at a loss for words. His wife saw him being taken away and nearly threw a tantrum, insisting that it was just a box of maggots that he had thrown in the community trash can. When the police followed them to check, there was no large cardboard box in the trash can, let alone anything disgusting like a box of maggots. Of course, the couple never realized that as soon as they disposed of the maggot, I was right behind them, destroying the evidence. I had the purchase record on my phone and solid proof of the bald man taking my package. No matter how loudly he protested, he couldn't clear his suspicion. The final outcome was either we settle privately, and he compensates me for my losses, or he faces detention for 5 to 10 working days for malicious injury. The bald man had no choice but to endure the pain of compensation. On the day I received the 1,000 yuan compensation, I bought a box of cherries and placed it at my door, even specifically messaging in the homeowners group that anyone who wanted some could come over and take them for free. All day long, I could hear the couple across the hall kicking and making noise. They were either throwing things or arguing. Just as I had to go on a business trip for a while, I enjoyed a few peaceful days. When I returned, I was in for a shocking surprise. Damn it, I couldn't even find my door. I came back in the middle of the night. As I exited the elevator, I was focused on my phone, and after just a couple of steps, I heard a dull thud and felt like I had run into a wall. When I looked up, I was stunned. A huge wooden cabinet, nearly reaching the ceiling, completely blocked the less. I pushed on it, but it didn't budge. My first thought was that they had intentionally moved the cabinet out into the hallway. But then I realized that such a large cabinet couldn't possibly have been moved out through their door. That left only one possibility: they had built it directly in the hallway. This was absolutely insane. Their strategy was genuinely shocking. They must have thought that I would be furious and demand they remove the cabinet immediately, or that I would try to rid myself, giving them the opportunity to demand compensation. They'd be happy either way. Regardless, I didn't want to argue with them in the middle of the night. The cabinet wouldn't be moving anytime soon. I decided to find a hotel nearby to spend the night. The next day, I tried to find the bald man, but there was no one home. When I contacted the property management, they were evasive upon hearing it was about the bully from apartment 16, no one in building 7. And they suggested I just call the police if things got out of hand. Last time I called the police, it was to get a reaction out of the bald man. This time, I had no intention of doing that. Since he wanted to play game, I decided to play along. I had the property management call the bald man while I was there to negotiate. He didn't intentionally ignore the call, but he arrogantly stated that he had gone back to his wife's family home and wasn't sure when he'd be back, insisting that we could discuss the cabinet when he returned. I said I needed to resolve this immediately, and the bald man got excited on the phone, shouting, "This is a cabinet I paid for. If you dare to dismantle it, you need to compensate me 10,000 yuan first." Here to ask for 10,000 for such a broken cabinet. I knew he was plotting something. After being scammed out of 1,000 yuan last time, he was probably losing sleep over it. "I'll dismantle your cabinet," I said with a faint smile. "Don't worry, I promise not to." "You're not going to dismantle it?" The bald man didn't expect me to say that, his tone filled with disbelief. "Not dismantling it? Didn't you say I couldn't?" "You. Just know this: if it gets damaged, you'll be responsible. If I find even a tiny scratch on my cabinet, you have to compensate me." Fortunately, I had a friend who owned a renovation company. I borrowed 2 experienced workers from him, and we spent a day carefully taking apart the cabinet doors and panel, unscrewing the screws from the wall, and then reassembling it all in the exact same way. The only difference was that this time, I moved the cabinet to block the door of the bald man's apartment. Finally, the roadblock was resolved, and I discovered that the peephole on my door had been smashed. The bald man and his wife returned the next day. When the couple saw that the wall was blocking their own door, they stood at the elevator for several minutes. Demias this time, they had no reason to cause a scene with me. He said it was his cabinet, so I moved it to his place. He said it couldn't be damaged. I restored it to its exact same condition. There wasn't a single flaw. The bald man never expected that after all his efforts and anger, he would have to sulk away and find someone to dismantle the cabinet himself. In the end, he dug a hole for himself. The couple, who could never hold back their anger, actually quieted down for a whole week after this incident and didn't come to bother me again. But I wouldn't believe that they could really swallow their pride. If at first they just disliked me, now they certainly wanted to stab me to death. One night, a buddy invited me out for drinks, and on my way back, the streets were deserted. There was an abandoned dirt road near the neighborhood, and when I passed it, I couldn't hold my bladder any longer. So I turned in to relieve myself. Just as I was pulling my pants up, I felt a sharp pain in my back. Turning around, I saw 2 men, one fat and one thin, both wearing masks and hats. Although the light was dim, I still recognized one of them, with his short and stout build and vicious triangular eyes. It could only be the bald man. Fine. If he wants to play rough, I'll give it to him straight. No wonder the bald man had been quiet for the past few days. He was lying in wait for an opportunity, choosing to strike when it was dark and deserted, away from any surveillance. I rubbed my shoulder, pretending I didn't recognize him. "Hey, man, I don't have anything valuable on me, and this is a society governed by law, so you better think twice before making a move." Thin guy next to the bald man, holding an iron rod, completely ignored my word, exchanged a glance with the bald man, and swung the rod at me again. At this point, reasoning was pointless. Without any hesitation, I delivered a flying kick right to his solar plexus. My buddy practiced martial arts, and there was no way the thin guy could withstand that kick. He stumbled a few steps before falling to the ground, unable to get up. Unfortunately for him, his movement seemed incredibly slow. Just that sneak attack had given them a moment of success. I easily grabbed the rod from him. Then, I proceeded to smash it against his cap with all my might. The bald man screamed in agony. He usually looked tough, but I was surprised at how fragile he was. After just a dozen strikes, he was rolling on the ground, clutching his leg in pain. Just as I was gearing up for another strike, the bald man shouted, "Are you trying to kill me? I'm telling you, this is a society governed by law. Think it through." Was that the line I just used? I couldn't help but laugh, seeing that I'd taught him a decent lesson. I threw the rod away. But later, I regretted it. I regretted going easy on the bald man since I had finally gotten a chance to hit him without fear of him calling the police. The next day, when I woke up, the homeowner group was lively, discussing the bald man's situation. It turned out that I'd broken the bald man's leg, and he had to call an ambulance in the middle of the night to go to the hospital, causing quite a commotion. His leg was fractured, so he had to stay hospitalized. During the time the bald man was in the hospital, they no longer worried about running into that crazy couple while walking their dogs, nor did they fear being chased and cursed at for looking at their phones in the elevator. Some even said that if that family moved out quickly, it would be a blessing. A week later, the bald man returned home from the hospital. His wife was supporting him, and a thin guy with a head full of yellow hair followed behind. Looking at his bill, he resembled the thin guy who had ambushed me that night. That day happened to be Saturday, and I was pondering whether to order takeout or cook when suddenly there were loud banging noises at my door that startled me. When I went out to check, I saw the bald man's wife smashing my fingerprint lock with a hammer. I couldn't understand what this crazy woman was up to again. She shook her head and acted like a street thug. Her eyes filled with provocation. "Got a problem?" I smiled slightly. "No problem. Since you've broken it, you'll just have to pay for it." "Pay for you? You wish. We haven't settled the score for my husband's broken leg yet." "Now that's a blatant accusation. How is your husband's broken leg my fault? I can't be held responsible for the fact that because I had a conflict with him. Kid can't poop or can't have kids in the future." The bald man's wife instantly turned pale, as if I had struck a nerve. "What the hell are you talking about?" She suddenly exploded, acting like a madwoman, lunging at me to scratch my face. Just as her claws were about to hit me, I grabbed her arm. Considering she was pregnant, I didn't use much force. It was as if she had been hit by a car. She staggered backward several meters and then sat down on the ground. Then she began to wail at the top of her lungs. "He hit me. A big man is beating up a pregnant woman." I raised my eyebrows. Just then, the thin guy dashed out from the opposite door. "Are you okay? My stomach hurts so much." The bald man's wife clutched her belly, looking in pain. I couldn't watch any longer. "Stop acting. Your performance is really poor." The bald man appeared at his door, leaning on crutches and holding up his phone to record. Thin guy glared at me. "You bastard. Why do you keep bothering my sister and brother-in-law? What did they do to you? You bully two honest people, and you think you can get away with it. I'm telling you, if anything happens to my sister or her baby, I'll make you pay with your life." What the hell did I just hear? Honest people? If this couple counted as honest, then there were hardly any villains left in the world. I scanned the three of them with my eye. "All right. I'm waiting." That night, the homeowner group exploded with messages. The bald man released edited video, showing me pushing his wife down. And then she sat on the ground holding her belly and crying. The yellow-haired guy yelled, "I'm telling you, anything happens to my sister or her baby, I'll make you pay with your life." The video ended with his wife lying in a hospital bed, and beside her was a hospital diagnosis. It showed the pregnant woman exhibited symptoms of a threatened miscarriage. Beating a pregnant woman leading to miscarriage is a serious charge. It turned out that the couple had colluded with the thin guy, didn't come after me just to stage this drama. in so much pain right now. I can't even imagine how some people can be so malicious over a trivial neighborhood dispute, repeatedly causing us trouble. Extorting. And now they've broken my bones and nearly caused my 3-month pregnant wife to miscarry. My wife and I have been married for 5 years, and we finally have our child. But now we don't even know if we can keep our baby. What have we done wrong? There's no justice left in this world. Is there no law anymore? His heartfelt words were a direct accusation that I was a heinous criminal. The bald man's little essay looked incredibly emotional, but most people had a skeptical attitude. Neighbors in the group gradually started to chime in. The first to speak up was the downstairs auntie. I don't believe that Xiaozu is that kind of person. How could he possibly hurt your wife? This young man is not that kind of person. An unregistered account chimed in. Yeah. You were talking about who the real villain is in our building. That's obvious. We all know. I've watched the video several times, and I still don't see 16 doing anything. The bald man was furious. Are you all blind? Can't you see that diagnosis report? Did you see the word miscarriage? This is not something I afford. A female homeowner immediately replied, threatened miscarriage is not the same as miscarriage. I had it when I was pregnant too. Aside from impact, it could be due to the embryo's quality or the mother's malnutrition. The bald man cowed and argued against the crowd and tagged me. It matters how much you all talk. I've already gathered all the evidence and will call the police soon. Just wait for the law to punish you. I replied. Why don't you hold off on calling the police for now? No need to escalate things. The bald man thought I was scared. It's too late to regret now. Why didn't you think about these consequences when you hit my wife? If you want me not to call the police, then you have to pay. All right. It all comes back to paying money, I said, following his line of thought. How much do you want me to pay? Medical expenses, nutritional expenses, mental anguish. At least 100,000. Anything happens to my wife's pregnancy, you owe us 500,000. If you don't pay, I'll sue you. I'll ruin you. I smiled, finally unleashing the killer move I had prepared for a long time. For another man's child. You think this is worth all the fuss? The bald man immediately sent a voice message. What the hell are you talking about? If you keep talking nonsense, it'll tear your mouth apart. He sounded like he was on the verge of exploding. Not seeing the coffin, he wouldn't shed tears. I remained calm, sending the evidence I had prepared in my phone to the group one by one. The first image was of his wife opening the door for a tall man, with the timestamp showing 11:50 p.m. on August 20. The second image was of the man exiting the door, timed at 7:10 a.m. on August 23. The third image showed his wife in a restaurant, embracing the same man. The fourth was a video of her standing in a corner, looking very angry and saying that only after the child was born could a paternity test be done. Each piece of evidence was heavier than the last. I added, whether I pushed your wife or not. You know. I know. And your wife knows. Although you're a jerk. As a kind-hearted man, I still can't bear to see you defending her when you end up being cheated on and then helping the lover raise the child. The bald man fell silent. The others in the group were also quiet, sinking into silence. The bald man must have been on the verge of a breakdown at that moment. Who would have thought that I would discover his wife's infidelity? On the third night after the bald man was hospitalized, a notification popped up on my phone from the surveillance, alerting me that there was movement detected in the footage. I clicked it open and saw a tall man coming out of the elevator, heading straight for the opposite door. The door opened quickly, and it seemed the bald man's wife knew he was coming. She welcomed him in with a smile. It wasn't until the next morning that the man exited from the opposite door. This explosive discovery was something I cowed and let go of, so I spent some money to hire someone to follow the bald man. After a few days, fortune smiled upon me. I finally captured photos and videos of the two meeting in secret. The bald man left the group chat. His wife also exited the group. They didn't say a word. Yet it seemed like they had said everything. I went about my daily routine, going out early and returning late. And for 2 consecutive weeks, I didn't encounter the couple. The bald man hadn't come to trouble me again. It made sense after being publicly exposed for such a huge family scandal. Any man would be devastated. How could he have the energy to continue fighting me? The last time I saw the couple was half a month later, on a certain night. I was coming back from a night run when I noticed their door wide open. I heard the bald man inside yelling, "Get out of here. This house was bought by me. It has nothing to do with you." Then a suitcase was thrown out. His wife came out, crying and gasping for breath. When she saw me standing at the elevator door, her eyes were filled with resentment. I stepped aside to let her pass. Curtis Wells inviting her into the elevator. She glared at me, and walked away with hatred. The bald man came out to close the door and saw me too. His expression was even more intersetting, nor she embarrassed, nor angry, but definitely not a pleasant face. He slammed the door shut with a bang. The next evening, when I returned, I heard in the owners group that the people from 1601 had already moved out, and the house was listed for sale at the property management office. I hadn't anticipated that the bald man would move away, let alone so quickly. A month later, a couple of teachers moved in across the hall. On their first day, they brought me a welcoming gift and politely said they hoped to get along well in the future, which made me feel a bit awkward. And always occasionally, I would think of the bald man. With such an exceptional neighbor, it would be hard to come across someone like him in this lifetime.